Okay, so serial April 2023, it's starting. So last month I was in Reykjavik. We finished the month of March with Reykjavik, and as I always talk about photos I took or edited in the previous months, April starts with me being in Reykjavik. And as I was there for an art book fair, I decided to take a camera that wouldn't give me the opportunity to take pictures all the time. I like also sometimes to have something more classic and more in phase with me, more sensual. And that's the Leica M8 for me. It's the one I prefer. And here with the Summicron 35mm f2 lens. When I have this camera, it's quite slow. It's not very sensitive. Sensible, it doesn't mean the same thing. Sensitive at higher ISOs, beyond 400, it's kind of really grainy. But it's really a pleasure, the sound of it, the way you use it, the object itself. And the color quality, it's not a full frame sensor, it's an APS H. So very interesting. And here I was taking pictures once in a while when I felt like it, and the colors of Reykjavik at that time of the year that you can see with those curtains. And I found the diptych interesting here, and the grass in the Bay of Reykjavik with this family walking, really in phase. Yeah, and those two pictures are actually from March, but I usually edit my images even more so when they're not that interesting theoretically. I edit them a few days later. So these were taken end of March when I was going to Reykjavik. The picture on the left, same equipment. Picture on the left at Jotel in the terminal of Schiphol. That's the airport, international airport in Amsterdam. They have those really tiny cabins. It's quite practical, quite comfortable also, but this weird experience of being to me it seems like one of those Japanese box hotels, but I haven't been to Japan, so anyways. And that's the first cocktail on the right I was taking at the Slip Bar in Reykjavik, one of those places where you can have some good cocktails. Again, when I take the M8, it's a slow camera, but it's not very I can put it in a pocket, and it's nice. It works a little bit like a film camera, actually. I'm always happy to take a few souvenirs. It replaces my phone. And on the right, that's the museum where the art book fair was happening. That's a museum of modern and contemporary art in central Reykjavik. And this detail on the right, that was at the end of the fair. You had those two small figures, clay figures that I found cute, so I took a picture. And that was the stand of another exhibitor. But a really fantastic event, really great. And anyways, as I was there not for taking pictures, and I had plenty to do with the art book fair. This camera, the M8, it's always the same equipment right now. It's really great. I can just walk around and look at things I already know in more details and try to find out other sensations. And here that was in the marina of Reykjavik. There's this parking lot, which is quite raw, and took pictures of the stones. Really not that interesting pictures, but that's part really of the experience. Here again, two pictures of places I really know, quite untouristy, I would say. I've been going to Iceland for really many years, and I know those places, but taking once in a while pictures of those various situations and seeing them evolve is interesting to me. On the left, you can see this mound, kind of brownish mound in the barrier of the marina. Well, you have the marina of Reykjavik, and you have this. This is an art object. It was meant as an. I think it was an anniversary of something, but of some sort. Actually, I go there very often, and I forgot. But it's really cool, and I wanted to capture the moment, this gray moment. And on the right, that's one of those buildings that has been destroyed, and it's going to let place for modern buildings. It's really central. A few years back, people were kind of really having this discussion on shall we destroy the old houses to expand and develop newer and better quality buildings for new inhabitants. But the result is that they're being destroyed, and this picture is kind of a memory of the past. Again from the same place, from the marina, you have the Harpa, which is the opera, with this light in the skies. Iceland is fantastic for skies, lights, and the ambiance, the weather ambiance. And on the right, again, one of those details of a parking lot. The M8 is an interesting camera, and I think there's many cameras like it, which are not very performing, like some would say, like a Digicam. Definitely not, in my opinion. We'll see that a little bit later. It's really slow. You can't really go up with the ISOs without creating a huge amount of noise. But that makes for a different type of photography, more similar to what you would have with film. And on the left, that was visiting an art gallery, which is in a gas station. The gas station is still functional. I think it's a great idea, but because they didn't need the counter anymore or to sell stuff, it was too complicated. This really bright, brilliant artist opened the gallery. The gallery replaced the central island. You can still fill up your gas tank, but you have a gallery instead of a place where you could buy stuff before. And great gallery, great artworks. It's at Kopavogur, south neighborhood of Reykjavik. Great place. And here you can see with the M8, there's lots of grain. It's a little bit fuzzy, some kinetic artifacts. Gives it some life. And on the right, lots of grain. That's the Tjörnin. That's a small lake in the middle of Reykjavik. Again, you can't really... I'm probably at the 1/15th of a second. I'm actually glad it's not too blurry because I didn't move. But something interesting, I might do a test in the future with those new AI tools for denoising. I would be curious to see how this image comes out. Will my image lose its personality? Interesting question. Are we going to lose all of those really great sensor rendering because AI is going to help us have better quality, more modern looks to older images? Who knows? But anyways, the M8, again, same equipment, is great when you have the light. And that's two details of a place that wasn't open at the time. They were starting to test the service, real-life test of the whole infrastructure. I was looking at the whole team trying to serve real false clients. Really cool-looking place that looks really great, and I'm looking forward to go there. And that's two details I took with the M8, and the M8 gives it this extra touch in terms of color. In real, it's great. With the M8, it gives it an extra texture, which I really like. Switching finally. Here, it's two examples of a lens I'm testing for the first time. The Leica Hektor 28mm f6.3. I had seen a review of this lens. One of those photographers on YouTube. Seemed quite a poetic lens, interesting. It's a lens that was announced in 1935, 5 elements in 3 groups. It was made before the summer on 28mm f5.6, which I know and use regularly. So I was really curious if there were a difference with the Hektor, and I asked this photographer who did this video about it if he knew the Summeron, and he didn't. So I was kind of stuck. And happily, I got the occasion of testing this Hektor lens, so I took it for a ride on the Leica SL2, which doesn't have the color distortion on the borders because of the micro prisms on the sensor. You can ask the question below. I'll answer if you're interested. But it's I really kind of like the rendering. The picture on the left, that's no crop, good geometry. The middle parts of the images are really well defined, very, very good contrast, very, very precise. But the borders really get blurry fast without too much geometrical distortion. Gives it some depth, but as you can see also on the crop, I'm probably losing 1/4 of the surface with my crop on the picture on the right. but I hadn't rotated it well when I took the picture. And yeah, really nice lens, very good definition. Again here, looking at perspective, lots of vignetting, as you can see with the blue sky. But otherwise, very interesting rendering. I wonder if I actually prefer it to the Cimarron. Having a 6.3 aperture lens, of course, creates a depth of field which I'm not really used to. I rarely go beyond 3.5 or 4. So to me, it's kind of a different experience. But yeah, the blurriness in the periphery gives me this kind of, it's a false bokeh, but it gives me this depth I'm kind of used to. So that might be why I kind of like it. Here again, 2 pictures with the same equipment, with the same lens. That's Geneva on the left with the Jet d'eau de Genève. And actually, there's a Leica store and academy in the building on the left, this curvy building. And this picture gives a good idea of what this lens can do. Very defined and precise in the middle, where your subject is kind of stuck because of the lens. But if you're into that kind of pictures, it's great. And the picture on the right, that's actually a picture of the bridge I was taking the picture on the left on, in a reflection. So yeah, anyways, testing this lens, I'll be testing it a lot more in the future, and it'll probably have a video with the Cimarron actually compared. Here I'm going back to film. Leica C11, it's an APS film camera, the only APS film camera from Leica. It's one that I really like. They don't make those films anymore and probably will never do again, but I have a good stock of expired ones. So here it's with Fujifilm Nexia 400, expired in 2007. I like the rendering of this lens, so I'll be using this camera hopefully for a long time until I have no films left or the camera breaks down. But yeah, two pictures I liked that I took last month. Here, still film, going to another camera, the Diana Mini camera. It's basically almost fully plastic camera. You can do square format and kind of regular 3x2 format. Not sure about that, actually, if you look at the results. And that's using Kodak Color 200 film, which was already in the camera when I got it, so not sure if it's expired or not. Looks kind of okay, but the results are, yeah, interesting. Artsy kind of looking. Actually, the picture on the right almost looks digital to me, so kind of confusing, but both in Geneva, just walking around on a sunny day. Anyways, that's the camera. It's fun to use, not many controls, but I'll probably be using it a little bit more. It how would I say? It pushes you to go into the experimental and randomness of taking pictures when you feel it and not being sure that it will do anything interesting. Anyways, going to something else. Olympus XA as a camera, it's 35mm camera, one that I really use a lot. It's one of my go-to cameras. I feel the urge sometimes to take it. It's precise, it works. I almost find it boring sometimes, but I'm sure about the results. And that's using an expired Solaris FG100 ISO film. I'm not sure when it was expired, but probably a film I will never find again. I'm not sure if it's a film that was a rebranding of another one, but interesting greenish hue overall. But I like the grain, I like the rendering. Here again, same equipment. That's in London. Before you had the picture the barber shop was in London, the other was in Geneva. Here both are in London. Yeah. The Olympus XA really gives it its usual character, but it's really super precise. So here you're really having more of the film's character. And one more of this equipment on the left. That's the Thames River in London. And yeah, nice. I will miss this film. I don't think I'll find one again, but who knows. And on the right, that's still a place where film has its saying. Medium format, Pentax 6.7 camera with a 45mm f4 lens, and Cine still 800 ISO film, and that's the first picture of the roll. Obviously, between digital and film, the process is different, of course. You have this element of surprise when you start your film. But medium format, large medium format, you can really have a huge resolution and big surfaces. 6.7 is already bigger than most sensors you will find. I'm not even sure they make, how would I say, a general public 6.7 digital sensor that anyone can use. But anyways, but yeah, that was a shoot I did for the Hypertight project, and the first pictures I usually try out the equipment, and I know I might not get a shot, but I found this one funny because it's just where it should be. Obviously, it's the first picture of the roll. So, anyways. Going to another film camera, the Voigtlander Vito C 35mm film camera with an expired Polaroid HDF 100 ISO film. I had heard of this Voigtlander Vito C camera. It has a mechanism where you open it up, you rotate down the panel, the front panel, and the lens comes out. Has some good reviews, not a very known camera, and so I wanted to try it out. And yeah, it works well. It's got a weird way of calculating aperture and speed, so you don't really know what you're doing, but the results are interesting and works well. On the left, it's a picture you might remember from the digital version from last month, but by the time I developed the film, of course. It's a hospital in central Reykjavik, and on the right, that's a bar in Geneva. And because I will probably do a separate video for the Voigtlander Vito C. I've tried it already with a black and white film with non-expired SFL T25 125 ISO black and white film. And that's in London, and great geometry, very precise, good details. Really fun to use, and actually I got both those films at the same time. They were my two first films, and I'm very positively surprised from the quality of this camera. Again, the results here, that's roaming around London for street photography, great camera. And here again, looking at the geometry, the perspective, it's great. Exposure works well. Yeah, you don't really control the depth of field, but anyways, it's really a nice point and shoot. I will continue using it. It's fun and very compact. Going to digital, that's with a Nikon Df, an old DSLR. But with good low light sensitivity, and that's with a lens I hadn't used before. It's a Lensbaby Composer Pro Sweet 35 lens. It's got a weird swap system that I don't really know well yet, but you can actually basically tilt shift your lens. I'm not sure about the results, but those two first pictures they're part of my first few tests. It's got some personality. Not sure about the results, but not sure I will. I haven't really felt compelled to use it much, but I will. And then going back to Digicams, I sort of talked about that before when I was talking about the M8. The M8 is definitely not a Digicam. This is more like what I understand as a Digicam. It's a all-in-one camera. I've been trying to test them because it's kind of a new thing where people are saying, oh, my Digicams are great, I make great pictures, there's no bad cameras. I wanted to confront myself to it. Probably no bad cameras, but for now I still feel there's some bad cameras. The Konica Minolta X1 I've used for those two pictures actually is a good one. It's 8 megapixel from 2005, super compact. It's a pleasure to use. I'm not sure about the results, but it's still pleasurable to use. And on the left, that's basically this, in low lights, it's a catastrophe, but quite experimental. The focus goes astray. It's going to make exposure times you don't understand. It's got some kind of vibrating reduction mechanism. Not sure it really works. But you get, here I probably took 30 pictures that night, and these are basically the two I find usable. So yeah, not very good in low light. The flash seems okay. I tried it on grass and flowers. Just wanted to see what it looked like. I felt like taking the picture at that moment anyways. That seems to work. And through a window where you see basically that the window is not very clean, but you can do some interesting stuff. The grain of the sensor is actually nice. It's a CCD. And when you have good lighting, however, the lens is reasonably well defined. The zoom is okay. The color rendering is good. You only get JPEG. You don't get raw files, but it's interesting. And actually, this camera, I actually feel I want to take it. It's super compact. It's super flat. It's one of those first kind of periscope lenses. So it's the length of the lens is actually, the length of the lens is vertical, and then there's a mirror that makes the light come in. So it's very, very compact, very nice to use. Again, 2 images with good lighting, with the same Konica Minolta X1. Konica Minolta, which first was Konica and Minolta, they merged, and then Sony bought them. So they disappeared when Sony bought them. That's just before. Again, as you can see in low lights, this sensor is kind of at its limits, but in highlights, very strong dynamic ranges. It flattens your skies. So if you don't mind that, and still want to have the good data in the lower light parts of your image, you will have that kind of flattening of highlights. Anyways, going to another Digicam, I really am looking at the good candidates of the time. And the Kyocera FineCam S5 had a good review at the time. It's from 2003. It's 5 megapixel. Honestly, quite deceived right now. These are my 2 good pictures. One is of pesto on pasta. I liked the ambiance, but the focus is not where it should be. Anyways, it's autofocus. And on the left, that's actually a reasonably okay picture. I don't know, not very impressed. So let's go back to end this month. I'm going to go back to the non-Digicam camera from Leica, the Leica M8. Basically as bad as a sensor as those other Digicams, but it's not a bad sensor at all. It's got lots of personality, and that's where I really believe that's, for now, that's what I'm convinced of. I mean, higher quality cameras of any time are meant to, like any other, I guess, technological object, are meant to be used in a more refined way and give more refined results. The M8 is really a pleasure to go back to. Here you have this image on the left, which is Alps going back on the continent from Iceland. Same equipment I had at the beginning of the presentation. On the right, that's from inside a building where you have huge engines, motors that pull boats in the port. So very low light, lots of grain, but the grain is really nice compared to the Digicams we saw before. And I could control the image, so that's a big point too. Obviously the M8 is a little bit more recent. It's from 2006 or 2007, but here with good lights, yeah, it works. It's nice. The colors are great. It's only 10 megapixel, but it works great for me. Even in low lights, the tool is made to be controlled. So on the left, you do get something. You can't really go above 400 ISO with the M8. So if you keep that in mind, it still gives you a really good result if you don't move much and control your speed, or if you move, if you know what you're doing, the results are great. So anyways, hopefully this entertained you, gave you a few ideas, maybe make you want to travel a bit or try some new cameras or gear. And yeah, see you next time.